Hello and welcome back to the Rank and Report football show from Washington, D.C. to London, England. I am your host, as always, Adam Booker, and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Charlie Gordon. How you doing, Charlie?
Very good, thanks, Adam. Yes, back in London, away from the homeland of Kidderminster. But yeah, I'm really good, mate. I'm very excited. Another rankings video, some new teams to discuss, which I'm very excited about, and it will keep it all fresh and lovely. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, it's exciting. Some new teams, some teams of old that we've been wanting to get back into our rankings finally have proven themselves again. But yeah, it looked like you almost got snowed into Kidderminster.
Oh, mate, it was it was a bit shocking. I don't know. Kidderminster is a very small place, but it seemed to bear the brunt of all the snow in England. Yeah, like I said, I was meant to go to a Kidderminster Harriers game, but that got snowed off, and then the whole country got put into lockdown, so it just never materialised. It's a sad thing, but I don't know. We'll be waiting until about March now, but the final stretch, we hope.
Yeah, same here. Um, All right, shall we get into some rankings? Before we do that, I just want to mention, as I always do, if you are watching this video right now, please hit the subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell down below to be notified whenever we release a new video. Leave your comments, tell us your rankings, tell us your thoughts, anything we want to hear from you. And also, if you are somebody or know somebody that would be interested in the podcast form of this show, you can search us on Apple Podcast and Spotify Podcast. Just search the Rank and Report Football Show, and we will be the first result that comes up. How are you feeling about your rankings? I feel like it's been a long while, even though it's been the normal length, because we've been off for the holidays and stuff. We haven't had
Yeah.
too many videos since then. But
It has. It's been a very long while. It's been updating my spreadsheet yesterday of all of what's going on around Europe. It was a bit of a mammoth task, I'll be honest, because a lot of games have happened since the last time, and all the leagues are a bit out of sync because some have had a Christmas break, some of them haven't had a Christmas break. But I think we've left it enough game weeks so that we've got a pretty good picture of what's going on, really. So I'm
yeah,
feeling
yeah,
good.
I've got a couple of teams that I feel are a bit lucky just because they didn't play, so they couldn't lose, and therefore they didn't move back in the rankings like some of the other teams. Like obviously the Premier League teams have played like 7 games in a stretch, where some of the Italian or German teams have played like 2 or 3 since then. So it's a bit
Yeah.
wonky, but we'll do our best to keep it all organized and get these new rankings out there. Do you want to go first with your rankings?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'll go first. I'll bring it home for everybody. And just before, like Adam said, please like, please subscribe, please turn on notifications. Also, leave a comment down below, please. Maybe leave what was the worst take of this entire video. Maybe something like that, and we can see who's got the most shocking opinion of 2021. But anyway, I'm going to get into it, and I'm going to start with number 10. And it's they always seem to be lurking towards the bottom of this top 10 European power rankings. And it kind of pains me a little bit because they don't inspire me at all. It's Real Madrid, right? They're second in La Liga at the moment. Their two most recent games were a 2-0 win at home to Celta Vigo and a very, uninspiring draw, 0-0 away at Osasuna. So, not too much to get excited about with Real Madrid, but their form has just been really quite solid, to be honest. They've only conceded one goal in their last 4 league games. So they're kind of taking a leaf out of Atletico Madrid's book in that sense. And they've also been unbeaten in their last 4 games. It's win, draw, win, draw. So, you can't say too many bad things about Real Madrid, but they're just doing enough to kind of cling on in La Liga and cling on to 10th place in the European rankings at the moment. So we'll go with them at number 10. Number 9, we'll go up to a team which is in quite bad form in their last 2 games. So it's a wonder how they're still in this rankings, but I'll explain. It's Inter Milan, right? Second in Serie A under Antonio Conte. Lukaku is up to 16 goals for the season. Martinez, 10 goals. And Hakimi, the flipping wingback, has got 6 goals, 4 assists, which is a joke. But yeah, their last 2 games were a draw against Roma away, which in fairness is not a bad result at all. But they did also lose 2-1 away at Sampdoria before that. So, mixed bag for Inter. But I think the important thing to note is before that draw and loss that I've just mentioned, They actually won 6 in a row in the league. So, it's hard to kind of just throw them straight out of these rankings because their overall form in the last couple of months has been absolutely spectacular. Um, so yeah, that's what I'd say about Inter. I'm really enjoying Inter. Lukaku is, proven himself to be a top class striker, and his 16 goal haul has put him right up there with Europe's best so far this season. Number 8, I've got the mighty Leon flying the flag for France in this list because French teams don't they have a lot to prove when it comes to a European list due to the kind of the standard of their league. But they're doing really well, Leon. They actually sit on top of Ligue 1 at the moment. Memphis Depay is having a really good season. He's got 11 goals, 5 assists. And their last few results have been kind of hard fought, but they've not lost. So you had a 3-2 win at home to Lens, excuse my poor French pronunciation there, before a 2-2 draw away at Rennes, which is no disgrace at all. Rennes are a really good team. They've actually been in this list a couple of times, I think. Um, so yeah, that's Leon really, really good counter-attacking side. And I think me and Adam are both big fans of Leon, so we will actually be discussing them further at a point in the future, in the not too distant future. So, look out for Leon. We like him. Number 7, new entrant. How refreshing. I'm happy to see him in here. It's Roma. They sit third in Serie A, in a very, very competitive Serie A. And it's, the fact that they sit here in 7th and they've had a really good last few weeks has allowed me to have a bit of a closer look at their team. And I'm really impressed. So you've got Henrik Mkhitaryan is having the most incredible renaissance. He's got 9 goals, 9 assists so far this season. And basically, it's a team with not that many huge names in it, Roma. And it's, Paulo Fonseca, unless you've been following Portuguese or Ukrainian football, he's not a huge name to the casual football fan as well, but he's doing a great job with Roma at the moment. Their last 2 results were a 3-2 win away at Crotone and a 2-2 draw at home to Inter Milan, who, like I said, are a great side, so no disgrace there at all. But yeah, Roma really coming good in the last few weeks, so they're deservedly in there at number 7. Number 6, Adam's least favourite team in Europe, and that is Liverpool. Uh, they are just about, they're in here purely because of their form in the weeks prior, because anyone who has watched the Premier League recently will know they've not had a good spell of form at all. Their 2 most recent games were a 0-0 draw away at Newcastle and a 1-0 loss away at Southampton. Despite this, they still sit first in the Premier League. Salah is still tearing it up with 17 goals. And they basically topped my list 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's hard for me to chuck them straight out, but it has been a poor period for them. They're down in 6th, and it was a quite incredible game they had in the week against Aston Villa's under-18 team in the Cup due to COVID. They made really hard work of beating them. They actually went in 1-1 at half-time. I don't know if you saw that, Adam, but did you watch that game, Adam?
Yeah, I can't remember who else was playing at the same time. It was some big game somewhere around Europe, but I had it on my laptop next to me. In fact, I actually only watched the second half because I think it was my girlfriend's friend who was a Liverpool fan texted her and was like, "How is this game tied?" And I was like, "No, I didn't even bother to check during the first half. I figured it would be 5-0 at halftime." So I
Yeah.
turned it on, saw the Louis Berry goal. And then, yeah, obviously it was a bit of a blowout in the second half. But yeah, you're right. They did make hard work of it.
Yeah, really hard work of it. It almost became like a bit of a human interest story, that game. Even my mum put down whatever she was doing to watch these 16 and 17-year-old school kids playing against like Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, because Liverpool put out a really strong side. I was genuinely scared for them. I had second-hand fear for these young children playing arguably the best, one of the best teams in the world. But like I said, 1-1 at half-time. Liverpool won the game 4-1 in the end, but it was a really interesting thing to watch, really.
Yeah, I felt a little bit of embarrassment that they had to bring on Shaqiri and who else was it that came on with him? I can't remember, but to
Thiago came on.
yeah, to go out and have to bring on more first team players in that game, I felt a little bit of embarrassment. But
Yeah.
yeah, what can you say? I mean, with Liverpool, the only reason and just to spoil right now, I don't have them in my top 10 this week. It's just I had a couple of clubs that I felt like were on hot streaks and I wanted to fit them in somewhere. And I just needed really, I wouldn't say Liverpool are a scapegoat, but I would say that out of the teams I had in my rankings last week, they had the worst form in that 14-day period since we last did our rankings. So I had to just chuck them out. But look,
Yeah.
I've said my piece on them before. I just feel like they're so up and down. They'll put out an absolute stinker of a result one week, and then 4 days later, they'll beat a fellow top 6 team for nothing. So I'm just needing some consistency from them. That's it. But one other club I wanted to mention was Inter. Another spoiler. Again, I've chucked Inter out. And that's probably not a surprise to most people who've followed all of our rankings because, first of all, their Champions League form had really put me off earlier in the season, but just something about this side in big games. I mentioned it with their Champions League form. That was a big game at Roma. They have a 2-1 lead, and they give it away in the last 4 or 5 minutes. That game away at Sampdoria, no Lukaku on the field for that game except for the last 25 minutes, and they looked empty without Lukaku. They had zero ideas without him on the field. So I've got my doubts about Inter.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt they are very dependent on Lukaku. Conte loves to build his team around a big, strong, kind of bullish striker up front, and that is exactly what Lukaku is. And I don't think they really have that in their ranks if Lukaku is left out of the team. So yeah, it's kind of understandable how they can be over reliant on them. But I just really like Inter from what I've seen of them. Their squad is of a really, really good quality, like really up there in terms of Serie A squads. And they do always seem to play quite entertaining games as well. Like I was looking through their results. Obviously a 2-2 draw at Roma, very entertaining. Looked like a kind of really like something of a slugfest, that game. And then a couple of weeks prior, they beat Crotone 6-2 at home. So 8 goals in that game. So, I don't know, I like Inter, and if you put a gun to my head, they would actually be my favourites to win Serie A. So that's kind of why I tend to sway towards Inter in my 10.
Here's my thing with that, and I'll just say this real quick and then move on to my 10 through 6. It's deceiving with Inter because their games look very entertaining, and that's because they are sloppy. That's basically the way I feel about it. This is not a team that sets out to win 6-2. This is a team that sets out to win 2-3-0. That Crotone game was 2-2 at halftime. They made some changes in the second half and then just kind of went all out and kept a clean sheet. But this is a team that, Antonio Conte's team are set up to be solid defensively, and they're not at all. And so when Lukaku's not on the field or when Lautaro's not sticking the ball in the back of the net, then you can get at this team. And I just feel like along the way in these big games when they've got to play Juve, they've got to play, Atalanta, then they might just drop points here and there, and that's going to just knock them out of the title race. But we'll see. I think just for time's sake, I'll move on to my 10 through 6. Big shakeup this week. Obviously, lots of teams losing, and it's kind of been that way this season where none of our teams really, except for 1 or 2, have been able to keep sustained runs going. So, big shakeup, lots of new entrants, as you said, which is exciting. But in at number 10, we've got our old boys in black and blue. We've got Atalanta, who were previously unranked. They've flown back into the rankings in at number 10. Their recent results are a 4-1 win over Benevento, a 3-0 win over Parma, and a 5-1 win against Sassuolo. And those are good teams they're beating. So, look, they're flying at the moment. Those big score lines that we're used to from Gasparini's Atalanta are back. The 3s, the 4s, the 5s. Things look to fall apart a little bit. There was a big falling out between Gasparini and Papu Gomez. And it basically looked like the falling out got so bad that it was one or the other for the club. Apparently, there's a story that I think it was after a game against Ajax in the Champions League, that Gasparini basically resigned. And they said, no, you're staying and you're finishing this season at the very least. And because of Gasparini staying on, Papu Gomez says, well, I'm not going to be here. So he hasn't played in like 10 games, which, he's the heart and soul of that club. So I thought there was going to be a massive fall off from there, but there hasn't been. They brought in Matteo Passina to basically take his spot in the 11, and he's done really well. So they've won 4 of their last 6. They haven't lost since November 28, and that's about the time that big falling out had happened. So they're kind of starting to pick up that form that had them, and I believe we both had them in at number 1 very early on in our rankings. So they may just be starting to climb back up in that Serie A title race and into our rankings. So we'll see. I'm excited for this Atalanta team. And then in at number 9, another new entrant. Very surprising that this team is not a week in, week out top 10 team, but it's Barcelona. They were previously unranked, but they're starting to pick up a little bit of form. Their recent results are a 4-0 win versus Granada, who are a very good team, by the way. A 3-2 win against Bilbao and a 1-0 win over Huesca. Like I said, they're finally starting to catch a little bit of form. That 4-0 against Granada was a dominant 4-0. The attack was really fluid. Leo Messi was on his game. And honestly, Granada could not lay a glove on Ronald Koeman's side. Coutinho is sidelined with a long-term injury, it looks like, but a front four, I should say, of Dembele, Messi, Griezmann, and then they kind of rotate Pedri and some other guys in that other attacking role, has been really fluid lately, and it looks like they may just starting to be catching some form going into the Champions League knockout games, which could be scary for a lot of sides around Europe. So Barcelona are in at number 9, and in at number 8, I've got Lyon, who were previously ranked at number 9. The recent results were that 2-2 draw against Rennes and a 3-2 win against Lens. Like you said, they were hard-fought games. You kind of mentioned everything there is to say about Lyon before we do a deeper dive in a separate video. But, say what you want about French football. They still sit top of a league that has PSG in it, that has Marseille in it. And, we've mentioned before that blistering counterattack they have when Toko Ekambi and Houssam Aouar and Memphis Depay come running at you. It is a scary, scary thing for a defender. And they're a really fun team to watch. So like you said, go out and watch Lyon if you can, because their games are very interesting. And French football is actually very interesting if you kind of put it out of your mind that it's, not the greatest of competition in that league. But Lyon are in at number 8. In at number 7, I've got Real Madrid, who have taken a step back for me. They were previously ranked number 4. The recent results were a 0-0 draw against Osasuna in the snow. It was the first snowstorm that had hit that part of Spain in like a decade, and they got annihilated. I was seeing some of the pictures from around like Madrid, and it was a big, big storm. So that game had snow just pouring down on them. But they had a 2-0 win versus Celta Vigo and a 1-1 draw against Elche. They were on a really good run that was kind of spurred by that win in the Madrid derby. I think those 2 draws in there, the Elche draw and the Osasuna draw, are a little unsatisfactory, but the win at Celta was big. Celta were on a really good run at the time, and Madrid pretty much dominated in that 2-0. But look, Benzema's still in good form. Lucas Vazquez is in good form at the moment. That midfield 3 of Casemiro, Modric, and whoever they rotate in that third spot is starting to become a little bit more fluid. And as we've seen from Zidane's Champions League winning sides, that engine room, that midfield is what everything runs through. So if that midfield starts ticking again and Benzema's still chipping in with goals, then this team could go on a deep run in the Champions League, and they could be up there with Atletico Madrid. Atleti are going to have to start dropping some points, but Real Madrid are hanging around waiting for that chance. So Real Madrid are in at number 7. And then in at number 6, finally, I've got RB Leipzig, who have flown back into the rankings for me. They were not ranked previously. The recent results were a tough 3-1 loss against Dortmund. That was the big, big game of the weekend. And they didn't play that well. But you know what? They're still up there in my rankings for me because they still find themselves firmly in a title race. They had a big 1-0 win against Stuttgart. Stuttgart are a really good team that are flying at the moment. You remember recently they went to Dortmund and won 5-1. And then RB Leipzig pretty much gave them nothing for 90 minutes. But they also beat Augsburg 3-0. I think we're in a really tough situation with RB Leipzig because 3 of their next 4 games are Union Berlin, who are in 5th, Wolfsburg, who are in 6th, and Leverkusen, who are in 3rd. So that stretch right there could really define their season and play a massive role in their final place in the table. But with Leipzig, we've mentioned it before, they do not have a center forward that they can rely on, and I think if they did, they would be a serial top 5 team for us. But they're still in 2nd. They're still hanging around. I think Bayern only have 2 points ahead of them in that title race. So I think for me, RB Leipzig have got to be at least in that 10 through 6. So yeah, I've got Leipzig in at number 6. How we feeling, Charlie?
I did think about squeezing them in at number 10, Adam, but you've definitely been very generous there. Very generous, because their form, they're not on red hot form, are they? I'm looking through their recent results there. Obviously, the 3-1 loss against Dortmund is kind of a really painful one because Dortmund. I'm a big fan of Dortmund, and we've talked about how dangerous they can be, but they're not in a great spell at the moment, Dortmund, and they really did kind of put them to bed. Was it away? Let me have a look.
Yeah, it was in Leipzig.
3-1, yeah, in Leipzig, and Dortmund were 3-0 up and kind of dominant. Haaland was making it look like men against boys as per usual. But in fairness, the 3 games prior to that for Leipzig, they didn't let in a single goal. So, they know what they're good at. They're good. They play really nice football. They're able to keep games tight. But they did get outclassed against Dortmund, and I do think it's a massive fact that they don't have a good enough striker. I think it doesn't get spoken about enough that Yusuf Poulsen is their striker. He was with them since the third division of German football. And I think it's very, very rare that a player can step up from that level to one of the best teams in Europe and produce again and again and again. And I'm sure, he must be in there for a reason. Nagelsmann's a really smart manager. He knows what he's going to get out of him. But every time I've watched him personally, I've not seen anything to really convince me that he belongs in that team.
Yeah, and lately, basically, if it's not coming through Dani Olmo, then it's not coming at all. But luckily for Leipzig, Dani Olmo is an absolute baller, and it is coming through him week in and week out. But yeah, it feels like maybe Leipzig have got to go out this January and try and steal. What I was thinking would be a really great fit for them was I was kind of looking around Europe at who is at a top club and is good enough to be at a top club but isn't getting time on the pitch, whatever it would be, was Luka Jovic, who just can't get on the field for Real Madrid. Maybe send him on loan to RB Leipzig because you put a high-quality center forward as the focal point of this Leipzig team. The movement, the way the ball moves, the pressing, they're going to score a lot of goals. But the issue, Sorloth isn't doing it. We talked about earlier in our one of our episodes that maybe he could be the guy to step up to the plate now that Patrick Schick and Timo Werner are gone. But it just feels like if they had a top-class center forward, if they could get 12 more months out of Timo Werner, that this would be a title-winning team. But, yeah just missing that spark.
Yeah, he's done it in Germany before as well, Jovic, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He pretty much made his name at Frankfurt when he was on loan. And that season is what persuaded Real Madrid to come in and buy him. So, I don't know, you look at Jovic and you think he's a bit of a risk because his time at Madrid's not been a success at all. But yeah, no, I like that suggestion. I think it would definitely be smart for them to look around Europe and pick someone up anyway. And I'd be very interested to see what would happen thereafter. But aside from that, it's time for 5-1, I believe. Let's see what we're working with here. Number 5. Let me try not to repeat what's already been said. But I've been really generous on the boys in blue and black. And that is Atalanta. They've flown up the list. They were nowhere, I'll be honest, in previous weeks because their season took a massive downwards spiral. But they're right back in contention, and it's like Adam said, it's because they've absolutely thrashed their last 3 opponents. And one of them was Sassuolo, who have been up near the top of a very competitive Serie A, for the majority of the season thus far. And it's crazy, isn't it? When you've got a team that's as attacking as Atalanta that are kind of so reliant on confidence and basically functioning like a well-oiled machine, it's kind of natural that you would expect them to be patchy in terms of form. But now that they are in a good patch of form and they are high on confidence, they are blowing teams away. They obviously that Benevento 4-1 win away, they had 27 shots on goal. That's like having a shot every 3 minutes for the entirety of the game. And yeah, Luis Muriel on 12, Zapata on 10 goals for the season. They're up to 4th in Serie A all of a sudden. And yeah, I'm pleased that they're back. I'm a big fan of them. They play really exciting football.
I think Luis. Sorry to cut in real quick. I think Luis Muriel. I think it was Matteo Benetti, who works for ESPN, posted this on Twitter the other day. I think Luis Muriel is statistically the most clinical striker in European football, as in the amount of chances he gets and what percentage of that he converts. The dude just doesn't miss. That combination of Duvan Zapata and Luis Muriel is terrifying.
Yeah, I love a stat like that. because kind of clinical is a thing that you kind of judge. What's the word I'm looking for? Subjectively.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
kind of an eye test.
yeah, yeah. But I'm surprised he's got 12 goals, which is decent, but I'm surprised he's not got more because I would have thought Atalanta create a lot of chances. But, you watch a lot more than me. But still, 12 goals, a very good return. Fourth place, Manchester City. Wow, the boys have absolutely flown up the list. I think they just about scraped it. Oh, do you know what? Were they even in mine last time? They might
I
have
think
been
I think we
10th.
both had them 10. Yeah.
Yeah, I had them at number 10 last time. And since then, something incredible has happened. Something absolutely unbelievable has happened, which has come totally out of the blue, pardon the pun. Um, which is we've just found our form that we were playing last season and the season before that. And we found out how to score goals again. It's incredible. There was a 3-1 win away at Chelsea, which was an unspeakably good performance. I was buzzing at that. And a 2-0 win away at Man United in the League Cup semi-final. So now City are on a run of 13 games unbeaten. We're playing some freaky, weird formation, which is just making us play gorgeous football again. Adam, I'll be interested to see your opinion on this, but all my guess is crazy because you literally have to guess the formation even after watching the game for a full 90 minutes. I think we've been playing something like 3-3-4 with Cancelo in centre midfield, and then we're just kind of flooding the front line with like a fluid front four or something like that. What do you make of it all?
I think it was the Chelsea game. I looked at it like an average position map, and it was something like a Ruben Diaz as a 1-3-1-3. Oh, I gotta get my numbers right here to make sure it adds up. It's like a
Well,
1-3-3-2 or something like that.
three,
Is
three,
that is
two.
that a correct amount?
I think we're one short there. Maybe it was one,
It's
three,
like a
three,
it's
three.
like a 1-3-1-3-2 or something.
Oh
There's
yeah,
just like
yeah, yeah.
random ones scattered in and out.
Yeah. Either way, it's a Bielsa-esque formation. And it kind of makes sense really because City were good at keeping that. We've got the best defense in the league, and so maybe it's kind of time to trust our defenders and throw caution to the wind and start playing some attractive football and scoring some goals. But anyway, Adam can add more when he gets to it. We're now fifth place in the Premier League with 2 games in hand. City are back, I hesitate to say, but they're up to fourth, kind of back towards where they belong in the European rankings anyway. Number 3, AC Milan. They're still top in Serie A. Their form has slowed somewhat, I will say, and there was a very damaging 3-1 loss at home to Juventus, which was their first defeat in the league for a long, long time. I'm sure Adam can give you the more specific stats, but basically they were undefeated for all of this season, and for a pretty good stretch at the end of last season as well. Adam, I don't know if you know the numbers on that.
I don't. It was before they lost to Napoli earlier in the season. It was like 27,
Right.
but it was at least within their last 10. It was their first loss.
Yeah. So yeah, unfortunate for AC Milan. The Juve game, they did kind of go blow for blow with them, but Juve did definitely have the better of the chances. Um, and Federico Chiesa scored 2 really good goals and kind of tore Theo Hernandez a new one at left back, which is unfortunate for him because he's been having a good season, attacking wise at least. But their other result was a 2-0 win at home to Torino. And with all this being said, they're still coping fairly well with Ibrahimovic's hamstring injury, which he's just about to come back from. So that could kind of inject a new lease of life into AC Milan. Number 2, Bayern Munich. Buzzing again, Bayern. I don't know why I hate them so much, but I just can't be bothered for them to be at the top of this list. So Bayern sits second. They're still top of the Bundesliga. Their last 2 results were a 5-2 win at home to Mainz and a 3-2 loss. Yes, you heard it, ladies and gents. A loss away at Borussia Mönchengladbach. And I believe that was after they were 2-0 up as well. So full credit to Gladbach and a young player called Neuhaus?
Neuhaus, yeah,
Neuhaus, that's the one.
yeah.
Who scored a great goal to make it 3-2, I believe. But Bayern Munich, still a top quality side, still deservedly in its second in this list. Robert Lewandowski, still in absolutely stupendous form. 23 goals in all competitions this season. I don't know for sure, but that's definitely the highest total that I've seen around Europe. I would imagine it is the highest around Europe.
Hmm.
And Muller is chipping in as well with 7 goals, 9 assists. So, and just to add, just to finish off on Bayern Munich, for Lewandowski is 8 goals in his last 5 league games. So crazy, crazy stuff from him.
Mm.
And number one, Atletico Madrid, deservedly in at number one this week. I have to say, last time out, I did kind of shoehorn Liverpool in there because I was bored of talking about Bayern Munich at the top. Um, but I've got no qualms whatsoever with Atletico sitting at the top of this list. They are first in La Liga with, wait for it, 3 games in hand. That's quite something, really, considering the level, the calibre of teams that are in La Liga. 3 games in hand. They've only conceded 6 goals in their 15 league games, which is less than half as many as anyone else has conceded. And just quickly, their last 2 results were a 1-0 win at home to Getafe and a 2-1 win away at Alaves. Not scoring tons of goals, keeping it really, really tight at the back. And, based on how things stand at the moment, they've got an excellent chance of winning La Liga. So, yeah, that's kind of how it plays out for me. Adam.
Yeah, finally, 2 weeks in a row now for you? No Bayern at the top. Look, for any Bayern fans watching, we have nothing against Bayern. We just wanted to make it interesting and waiting for a time that we could put somebody else in at number one. But yeah, I'm not even gonna discuss anything right now. I'm gonna go to my 5-1 because we've got some similarities and some differences. Actually, I think just one difference. So, and then we can discuss that after. But yeah, in at number 5 for me, I've got Juventus, who I don't believe featured in your 10 this week. Am I
No,
correct in
definitely
saying
not.
that? So I'm a lot higher on Juventus than Charlie is, but they were previously unranked for me as well. But I feel like they're kind of catching form, a bit like Barcelona. Their recent results were a 3-1 win over Sassuolo, a team who we repeatedly say is a very good team, even though we always say that when they are losing. And then they had a big 3-1 win at San Siro over league-leading AC Milan, and then a 4-1 win against Udinese. Ronaldo's back in the team. Federico Chiesa is starting to catch the form that he had at Fiorentina, and that's why they made a big money move to bring him in. Pirlo's been playing a kind of fluid 4-4-2 where he just kind of packs the midfield with guys like McKennie, Rabiot, Aaron Ramsey, and it's starting to work finally. They're starting to get balls into Dybala, to Chiesa, to Ronaldo, and they're putting chances away. That Chiesa goal against AC Milan was a sight to see. And like you said, he absolutely ran Teo Hernandez in that game. But yeah, this is a team that, like Barcelona, with the amount of talent they have, when they find a formula that starts to work and they start to click a little bit, they're going to beat everybody in their path. That's just how talented this team is. They're It's tough to say if they're in a title race or not because they do drop points here and there. Obviously, they had that 3-0 loss to Fiorentina. They played about 70 minutes of that game with only 10 men, but I'm really high on them at the moment. I've watched, I think, every single Juve game this season, and this is the best form they've been in all season, and they're finally starting to look like the Juve of old, which is not only dominating their games, but they're getting points out of the games they dominate, because that's been an issue for them this season, is they'll dominate a game and they'll draw it 1-1 or 0-0. But yeah, they're finally starting to pick up 3 points in all these games. So I think this is the start of a long run for Juventus. So yeah, Juve are in at number 5. In at number 4, I've got AC Milan, Juve's fellow Serie A team. They previously were ranked at 3, so they've moved down just 1 for me. But the recent results were a 2-0 win over Torino, that 3-1 loss to Juve, as I mentioned, a 2-0 win over Benevento. It was a tough loss to Juve. They were very lucky that day that Inter also dropped points, or Inter could have leaped over them into first place. But Ibra back in the team is a boost. He's not playing 90 minutes in every game, but he's getting back onto the field. For AC Milan, they're just continuing to just keep trudging along, and like you said, there's not a lot of losses in there. I just looked it up. Last 28 games, 3 draws and 2 losses. That's all competitions. That is a ridiculous stat. This is a team that plays in a very tough league, and it's a team that is not the most talented team in that league. There's probably 3, 4, 5 teams more talented than them in this league. They're young, but they're sitting in first, and every time they have something in front of them that they need to step over, any sort of obstacle, they step over it. Or they get lucky, and when they don't step over it, someone else takes a step back. So they're sitting in first, and it feels like a miracle season for them where they're finally going to pick up a Scudetto after so long. But yeah, AC Milan are in at number 4. And then in at number 3, our boys, Manchester City. They were previously ranked at number 10, but they had the big win at Old Trafford, at Stamford Bridge, and then they beat Birmingham City yesterday in the FA Cup. I think on form alone, they're the best team in Europe at the moment. The reason they're not in at number 1 in the rankings is just because that's not solely our criteria for these rankings, but on just form alone, they are just winning. The last time they lost a game was late November, and they've been playing twice a week since then, so that's an incredible stat right there. But look, the defensive pairing of Ruben Diaz and John Stones has been a revelation. They've only conceded 3 goals in their last 12 games. One of those was an own goal, and one of them was a garbage time goal against Chelsea that probably shouldn't have gone in. So, look, we talked about these weird formations that Pep is playing, but he's getting a tune out of his team, and the goals are starting to flow again. And when you have a team that is this good defensively, and finally Kevin De Bruyne, Raheem Sterling, they're starting to pitch in with goals again, that is a scary proposition for the rest of Europe and the rest of England. So I think even though they sit in 5th right now, they are now the odds-on favorite to win the league after Liverpool lost at Southampton. So that just goes to show just how good they are and just how high of an esteem the rest of England holds them in, at least the bookies. In at number 2 is Bayern Munich. They were previously ranked number 1. First time for me that Bayern are not in at number 1 since the very first episode we ever did of rankings. Like Charlie said, the recent results were that 3-2 loss against Mönchengladbach where they threw away a 2-0 lead, and they were dominating in that up to that point. But Mönchengladbach just clawed their way back into the game. And then they had that 5-2 win against Mainz. Look, I think Mönchengladbach kind of found the formula to beat Bayern, and that is if you are brave and aggressive and you can attack this team and play balls through the lines. I put this tweet out that Bayern has a Swiss cheese back line. There are so many holes in that Bayern back line that if you find the space and you can play a ball through, you will get in behind. They play such a high line. The issue is getting the ball against Bayern and holding on to it. They press so well that the way they beat teams is they don't let them have the ball. And thank God for that, because if you have the ball for an extended period of time, there will be space in this Bayern back line. And Mönchengladbach found that. They have a very good counterattacking team with players like Thuram and Florian Neuhaus, Patrick Herrmann. They can find space. And they found it very easily. And that's why Bayern are not in at number 1 for me, because I think if you're brave enough to attack this Bayern team, you will find joy. So yeah, Bayern Munich are in at number 2. And then in at number 1, a bit of a, I wouldn't say technicality because they deserve to be there, but they haven't played in a little while because they had a game postponed because of the snow. But it's Atletico Madrid. They were previously ranked number 2, so they finally jump up into that number 1 spots. They had a weird 1-0 loss to Cornea, I believe is how you pronounce it, in the Copa del Rey. But I'm going to kind of throw that to the side because they played with basically 50% of their senior squad. But look, so many teams around them are losing. Due to their postponed game against Bilbao, they didn't lose because they didn't play. So they had no reason to move back in the standings. But like you said, they don't concede goals, and they're finding goals from Luis Suarez, Joao Felix. They had a big 2-0 win against Sociedad a couple weeks ago, and as we've talked about before, Sociedad are a really tough team to beat. So yeah, I don't really want to, just reiterate everything that you've said, but they're playing classic Simeone ball. They're finding goals when they need them, and they're not conceding, and that is a recipe for success. So I've got Atletico Madrid in at number 1.
Yeah, I think it's as much of a case of Atletico moving up as it is that Bayern have just kind of dropped down below them in the list. Because like you say, Swiss cheese backline, that's kind of I like that analogy. Because their defense is shockingly poor this season. I don't watch a ton of Bundesliga football, so I can't give too much insight, but I can give stats, right? That's what I can do. I can give stats. And it's really shocking to me. I think they've let in 24 goals this season. I'm not sure how many games, 15, 16 games. You have to go, there's only 18 teams in the Bundesliga. and you have to go down to 12th place, Hertha Berlin, to find a team that's got a worse defence than Bayern Munich. That's the same Bayern that has topped this list pretty much every single week since the start of the season. So pretty serious issues, I think, for Bayern Munich. They're in second at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them kind of drop further down the list, as weeks go on, because it shouldn't be hard for teams to figure them out at this point. People they've had enough misery conceding goals, conceding loads of shots in games that, opposition should have a reasonable idea of how to get at Bayern, and they're proving that you definitely can get at them.
It reminds me a bit of what season are we in now? 2021, the 1920 Man City side, in which 17, 18, 18, 19, Pep Guardiola's City side. It's kind of the same with this Bayern Munich team. You kind of lose in the tunnel against this team. When you walk out in that tunnel and you see Lewandowski, Thomas Muller, Serge Gnabry, Leroy Sané standing across from you, you kind of have already lost the game in your head. And that's, I think, a lot of big teams in Europe have that kind of psychological advantage. The old Barcelona teams had it, that you knew you weren't going to win, and therefore you basically didn't have the bravery to go out and try and win. But like I said, with this the 1920 City side, somebody found out the formula and found out that this team isn't invincible. And so one team finds that formula and the rest start piling on. And I think Bayern can be get at really easily. Like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if they start to slide down the rankings a little bit, because Mönchengladbach are a good team, but they're not the best team. They're certainly not the second best in Germany. So when Bayern come up, So when Bayern come up against really good teams, your Dortmunds, your Leverkusen almost got a point out of it, your Leipzigs and stuff like that, they can really be get at. I mean, I don't know if you remember I think it was 4-0 loss they suffered at Hoffenheim. It was the same formula where Bayern had all the ball, and Hoffenheim just, when there was space, they went at that space, and Bayern just, they give you the time. When you want to have time on the ball, Bayern will kind of sit off, and that high line will have so many holes in it. So, yeah, I've got some worries about them. I think they're still going to win the league, and I think they're still going to go deep in the Champions League. But if teams are brave enough to attack them, then I think you can find joy. But what are some other big differences we've got? I've got Juventus in at number 5. You don't have them in your rankings. Give me your reasoning.
I don't have them in my rankings, and perhaps a lot of that is because, looking at them on face value, let me just start by backtracking before I've even justified anything to myself, right? I think you could make a good case for Juve to be somewhere around this 10, probably, towards the 10th place spot. But when you just look at it on face value, they're 6th in Serie A. Because they drew a lot of games at the start of the season, which made it tricky for them to be up towards the top of the league. And a couple of games ago, they lost 3-0 to Fiorentina as well. But, having done some further digging, they did go down to 10 men after 18 minutes because Cuadrado got sent off. So I think those two things, when you just take them on face value, you think, well, you can't be putting them towards the 10 best team in Europe, 6th place in Serie A, and they got beaten 3-0 a few games ago. But kind of either side of those incidents, they have kind of been blowing teams away recently. And it's not a total surprise to me that a team of such talent is eventually kind of finding their form now.
Yeah. Well, I think this run was really spurred in the Turin derby, where I think they went down 2-0 and they ended up winning that game 3-2. And they went on a bit of a run since then. Like you said, that 3-0 loss is kind of sandwiched in there. But in these rankings, I kind of hold a special place in my heart for these supremely talented teams that are in bad runs of form. And that's the Barcelonas, Real Madrids, and Juventus, where if they start to find a little bit of, and Liverpool, but they haven't found that form. So, Liverpool fans, I've got nothing against you. At least on the show, I have nothing against you. And if they deserve to be in these rankings for me, they absolutely will be. But yeah, these supremely talented teams that have patchy form, once they start to find a little bit of form, I will throw them in my rankings because I believe in that talent so much that if they start to click like this Juventus team is, then they are automatically a top 10 team in Europe just on talent alone. So I
Yeah,
don't know. I just felt compelled to throw them in there.
yeah. I think a good barometer of this 10 is kind of judging it on which 10 teams in order would you not want your side to come up against tomorrow. And yeah, I agree. Juve got so much talent, and they are finding decent form. So I do think you could put Juve in a top 10 if you're using that as the barometer. So yeah, I'll give this one to you. You deserve this. You've won the battle, but I'll win
Yeah.
the war.
All right. I think because it looks like we've got someone vacuuming outside my door, and for the sake of time, we can wrap up there because we're at about 45 minutes anyhow. So I think we're going to do a Leon video coming up soon. We're going to do a Champions League preview like we said we're going to do a million times and haven't done it yet, but we took a little break for the holidays. So,
And we're
yeah,
going to talk about Man United, I think, at some point. Potentially.
yes,
In
yes.
the
And I think we
pipeline.
may have a Man United fan as a guest on, so that should be fun. So before we sign off, just as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, if you're still here watching now, then obviously you're enjoying it or we're just really handsome. Either way, hit the subscribe button down below, hit the notification bell to be notified. Good Lord.
Quick, Adam, the vacuum's getting louder. Quick.
when, whenever we drop a new video, and leave a comment down below. Give us your rankings. Give us your you think you disagree with any of our takes, or if you agree, or tell us your favorite club. Maybe we can talk about them on the show at some point. Just tell us anything. But anyways, tell your mom, tell your dad, pass the show on. That's the best way to pass it around. Oh, sounds like we've got a break. But yeah, Charlie, any last words for the people?
Not really, mate. I think we should we should ditch this before the vacuum comes back on. So I'll see you and everyone else, in our next video.
It's like a horror movie. All right, I'll see you later.